Okay, and now we are starting our Parsha. Okay, so it's Parshas Balak. Okay, chapter 22, verse 2 is where we're starting. Stick with me. I also want to say that today is the 12th day of Tammuz. It's the day that the previous Rebbe was born, and also that he was let out of jail. Wow. And yeah,
he was let out of jail on his birthday. That's pretty fun.
Right, that was crazy.
In jail.
Yeah, Chabad rabbis have a history of being in jail. It's like a badge of honor. They're not in there for tax evasion. They're there for spreading Torah. Okay, they're there for.
And we don't have to talk about this.
So right. So what are we saying? So today is the day that he was let out of jail. He was put into jail for spreading Torah, and for teaching Judaism. And I just want to make a little plug that in general, we know that when things come around and dates and energy come around, then it's a thing, right? It's a thing. So in that place of where I am struggling in spreading Torah to myself, not being a weird, crazy person to everybody else, but in that place of where am I want to step into this place of being a proud, identifiable Jew, or what is it that I want to do? There's a little bit of like an injection today of that energy of like somebody who stood up, somebody who stood up to be and was a proud Jew, suffered for it and came and was victorious. So there's like kind of that space, that energy is around today, which is going on. The other thing that I wanted to point out is that in the Hayom Yom today, which is the book that's a short sayings, Chabad sayings for every day, connected to the 12th day of Tammuz. So the Rebbe writes in that book, he's quoting from his father-in-law from the previous Rebbe, that it is a day for Hasidim to farbrain. And I thought, how do you like this? It comes out on a Thursday this year,
so we can
and we have to farbrain. So for all those crazy, I am going to be asleep, people. No.
Yeah,
you gave us rules.
Thursday. Yeah, you can. Those are your rules that work for you. We, the Jewish people, not me, the person, right? So what? The Rebbe would want us to farbrain. But Rivka Martin really wants to go to sleep. We'll talk. I've got a wedding. We'll talk after. You guys are going out. Let's see what's going on, okay? Yeah, whatever.
Wait, no, we're going back in.
Wait, what's the food like for weddings in Israel?
Depends on the wedding that you go to.
Can we come back?
No, we're not. We're
Like 8:30. You be back here at 8:30. Okay, and so that is by way of introduction. So in case we were wondering, do we have like a stamp of approval to go for brain tonight? Yes, we absolutely do have a stamp of approval to go for brain. Okay, shh. Parshas Balak. Okay, here we are. One of the really hard things about this Parsha is that there are two bad people, and they both have very similar sounding names. We have Balak, and we have Bilam. Now that's not fair to have the two of them be protagonists in the same story, right? But they are. Balak is a king, and Bilam is a sorcerer. Okay, now I want to back up for a second to put context to what's happening over here. Last week, at the end of last week's Torah portion, where we sort of glossed over because we ran out of time, shockingly but true, the Torah talks about the fact that the Jewish people actually had two major battles. Okay, they didn't want them; they were looking for passage. But in both situations, people came out, and the Jewish people said, "Can we go through your land? We're going to the land of Israel. We just want to go through." And in both cases, both Sichon and Og came out and they said, no, we're going to fight you. And so the Jews fought back and they got all that territory. So all of this territory over here is basically what they ended up getting in those wars. And so the Jews, but they still can't go through. So they're still trying to go through. The next people up on the line, on the outside, on the other side of the Jordan River, is a nation called Moab. Now, Moab sees what happened to the people. For us, it was last week, but whenever it was in the recent enough history that even without social media, they got the news that these people were disseminated, and also Sichon and Og are actually everybody paid them protection money to protect their borders because everybody knows that the Jews are coming in this direction at some point, and whatever other enemies might want to come. So these two kings and these two kingdoms were extremely, extremely powerful, and people were paying them protection money. What do we pay protection money for? To be protected. And what happened to the people who were supposed to protect the other people? They got wiped out. So the people in Moab got very, 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 very nervous. Now,
I would be too.
what?
I would also.
I would also be nervous. I understand. I would be nervous. It's 100% legitimate. So, Moab, here's a little interesting thing. Moab is actually, they're distant cousins to the Jewish people. Okay? And God told Moses that you cannot start up with Moab. You cannot fight with Moab. You cannot fight with them. So Moab, on some intellectual level, really doesn't need to be worried about the Jewish people. On an emotional level, like we hear why they're nervous. Okay, we understand why they're nervous. Their king is Balak, and he realizes like going out in brute force against the Jewish people hasn't really worked very well for the very strong people. So let's go a different route, and that is where our Torah portion opens. Our Torah portion opens up that Balak ben Tzipor, if you take a look inside chapter 22, verse 2, he sees what the Israelites did to the Amorites, and they get very, very nervous. And he gets nervous. And what happens when your leader is on television holding press conferences, visibly sweating and freaking out? And yes, you guys not. But what happens to everybody else? They get nervous, right? So all the people are now in a state of absolute panic. They're in an absolute state of panic about what the Jews are coming. They're gonna wipe us out. So what do they decide to do? They're gonna say, let's try another way of attacking the Jewish people. If we go back in history, we know that when when Isaac blesses Jacob and Esau, he basically says that Esau has power and Jacob has prayer. Hayadayim yidei Esav, hakol kol Yaakov hayadayim yidei Esav. That the voice, the prayer comes from the children of Jacob, and the strength comes from Esau. So, if the Jewish people are working with Esau tools, they are being victorious in battle. So then Balak is like, we got to use something else. We got to go to the power of prayer / cursing. We're going to go to a very, very well-known sorcerer, and we're going to get him to curse the Jewish people, and then they're going to go away. Now, the reason that Balak knows that this sorcerer is in fact powerful was because in the last battle that Moab themselves had, he was cursing for the other team. And they really lost terribly. So he knew that this Bilam, who we're going to talk about in a second, he knew that he had power. And it's interesting, the Talmud tells us that Bilam, as a sorcerer, as a prophet, was of equal stature to Moses. He was an incredibly, incredibly, incredibly powerful person, very, very connected, and at the end of the day, a really terrible person. And the Gemara says, like, why do we have this? Why do the nations of the world end up with somebody like Bilam? Why do they get a Moses-like quality? And so it brings the back-end conversation where Hashem says, well, when the nations of the world say, if you would have given us a Moses, we would have been different. So he says, I'm going to give you somebody like Moses, and let's see what happens. And it continues and it says, and what did this person do? He basically broke open every single moral norms that the people of that time had, and just did terrible, terrible things with them. So I want to make a plug here that it's not just enough to have power. Personal. I'm talking about us personally. It's not just enough to have the ability to do whatever we want, but we do have to have the ability to, how do we channel it? How are we taking this incredible power that we are given as, women in 2024? We have incredible, incredible power. We have access to incredible, incredible information. What are we going to do with that? What are we going to do for ourselves, for the world at large. Like, how are we going to make the world a better place? Because just because we have the ability to do something, isn't actually a guarantee that we're going to do something good with that. And so I want to make a plug for us to think about ourselves personally. What is my power? What is it something that I can do? I'm not saying what's my superpower, like we all have a superpower, but even what is my thing, and am I using it for holiness and godliness? Because if I'm not using it for holiness and godliness, well then what am I doing with it? Right? I'm not, Chassidus looks at the world as good. It's either being used for holiness or it's being used for not holiness. There's none of this like par of hanging out in the middle, doing neutral situation. So if I have a talent, if I have an ability, am I using it for holiness and goodness and kindness? Because if not, by default, where is it going? It's not going no place. So if I'm not, and I want to broaden that. This is my own challenge. You can take it or leave it, right? I want to broaden that to say that when we talk about doing something that's in the realm of goodness and kindness and holiness, I'm not only talking about for mitzvahs. I think there's lots of ways that we make the world a better place. And those are the places that we need to sort of use our talents. We need to turn our talents into the places that are going to make people feel good about themselves, the world a better place, like to bring light into the world in so many different areas. And one of the things that we absolutely know is true today is that one person can absolutely make a difference. Once upon a time, when we lived in the shtetl, and you maybe got 10 kilometers away in your lifetime to the big shtetl nearby, like you didn't understand the power of one person. But today, with our interconnectivity, we know that one person can absolutely make a difference. So I want to give us a bracha, not just a plug. I want to give us a bracha that we listen to what our power is, we listen to what our ability is, and we figure out how we can shine it forward to make the world a better, cleaner, healthier, holier place, more godly, more kind, more compassionate. Because Bilam didn't do it. He was trying to figure out how to make it worse. So our story opens up where a delegation goes from Balak. Like I said, it's going to be so hard because we have a Balak and we have a Bilam and they sound so close. Question.
Is the reason why like things with sorcery and stuff are kind of like looked down upon in Judaism? Like,
Not looked down upon, they're forbidden.
right. So like
Not from this.
Oh.
Meaning there is an actual prohibition in Torah, mentioned more than once actually, that we are prohibited from going to sorcerers and
But it
necromancers
goes as
and
far as like watching Harry Potter and things like that.
No.
what?
Certain people.
Well, I thought that.
No, it's very evangelical.
I thought people like wouldn't let their kids watch certain things because it had these ideas of
I mean, there were probably going to be
I'm
some
gonna say for
like
sure there are some
recognize,
people like
yeah.
that, but when we talk with the Torah,
It's like a general thing.
no, the Torah prohibition is you can't go to necromancers and seances and sorcerers and all different kinds of things. And what's interesting, Sasha, what's interesting is that we're not prohibited from going there because they're wrong or because the information they would give you would potentially be wrong. I want to just go out there and say, we all know horoscopes are nothing, right? Okay? I know. Okay, I want to say something. Today, there's a lot of stuff going on that's just people reading body language. So I'm not talking about that. But Torah does believe that there is, in fact, an actual power of sorcery and communication with the dead. It does. And we don't not go there because the information is false. We are prohibited from going there because that is not the channel that is holy for us to use. And we are called a holy people. So we're not going there, because there are a bunch of charlatans. They may be and they may not be. But the point is not because God's trying to protect us from being ripped off by some crazy person who whatever. That's not why we're not going there. We're not going there because even when it's right, it's wrong for us. That's not where our soul source connects to get information. It's not coming from a holy source. And so therefore, all the magic, and I'm not talking about sleight of hand, but real magic that exists in parts of this world are not coming from a holy source, and that's why we don't go to those areas. There's a prohibition not because they don't work, but because they're not coming from a holy source. So, yeah, question, comment? I'm going to keep going. Okay, because we're going to run out of time. Okay, so the Moabites get really scared. They send a delegation to Bilam, and they say, can we hire you? You're a sorcerer for hire. Can we hire you to curse the Jewish people? And he says, look at the pasuk. He says, they say this nation came out of there. Could you curse us? And he says in chapter 22, verse 6. No, not on 6. He says in verse 8. He says to them, "Stay here. I need to ask God. I can only say what God says that I can say. I can't do something that God doesn't let me do," which is an interesting thing for somebody who's on our evil character list to be able to say, but I can only do what God says. Yes?
Does he start out saying that, or is it because first God comes to him and
No.
says, that's later?
No. He starts out right here. The first, they say, "Can you do this? Can we hire you for this?" And he's like, "I got to hear what God has to say about it." Okay? So some people end up staying. They have negotiations back and forth. And he's like, "Even if you gave me a house full of gold and silver, I couldn't curse these people because God doesn't want them to be cursed." And yet we see with all his protestations about, "I can't do that," he keeps going. He keeps making steps to go to curse the Jewish people. And I want to just Bilam, yeah. They go. Balak sends a delegation. And they say, "We'll give you so much honor and money and da-da-da." And Hashem, they sleep over at night, and God's like, "You can't," it's very powerful what Hashem says to him. Hashem says to them, in verse 9, God comes to Bilam and he says, "Who are these people who are here?" Right? Like sort of opening like, oh, maybe God doesn't know everything, right? So Bilam says that the king sent them to me. And he's like, and he talks it out. And Hashem says to him, "Lo telechi mahem, do not go with them. Do not curse this nation, ki baruchu, because it is a blessed nation. It is a blessed nation, and no matter what you're going to say, it is not going to work for you." And I want us to sit with that and say, ki baruchu, we are a blessed nation. And when we go through life, we need to remember that and have it like imprinted in our heart that we are a blessed nation. And things happen and we're like, huh? Really? Yes. Really, we are a blessed nation. Our blessing should be that we should be able to see it in a revealed and easy to appreciate manner. But Hashem says in the Torah, we are a blessed nation. Sasha, question.
So, God spoke to Bilam, even though he's a sorcerer.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Is he Jew?
No.
Okay.
He's definitely an exception to the rule, but yeah, there is an idea of prophecy and sorcery and all this kind of stuff going on. Ariel, you had a question?
That was my question.
Okay. Anybody else? Yes.
We just learned in our other class that there's nothing that exists outside of godliness. So how can we say it's not a holy source if it's coming from godliness? Like these sorcerers.
Because the question is, once things get channeled down from an ultimate source of God, where does it go? So if you go back, the source is holiness, but where's the lower source that I'm tapping into? Do you remember pinball machines?
Yeah.
Like where you have a ball comes from the top and it could go any place? It's all starting from here. But how it comes down and where it ends up, like it's going to all fall at the end, but I'm saying the way it comes through doesn't mean that at this level where I'm intercepting it, it's in a good place. If I go back enough, I will get to the source of light that is enlivening everything and da-da-da-da-da. But where am I tapping into? I'm not tapping into that. I'm not tapping into that level because it's been contracted and changed and everything. So now it's manifest in a way that's not holy. It's ultimate source. It's ultimate source of everything is God. But did you have a question? No? Okay, good. So they go back. He says, so some people, God said, you can't back and forth. He's still going. Hashem says, finally, go, but you can only say whatever I tell you to say. And Bilam is still thinking, I could finagle the system. And so they go through. We're gonna do this. Okay. Okay. So some of them go, and Bilam goes up. We're up to Shlishi, the third Aliyah. It's chapter 22, verse 21. So Bilam gets up in the morning and he saddles his donkey, and he goes with the princes of Moab. 22 yet? Chapter 22, we're up to verse 22. Who wants to read in English? Chapter 22, verse 22.
I'll go.
Okay, thank you, Maya.
God's wrath flared because he was going, and an angel of Hashem stood on the road to impede him. He was riding on his she-donkey, and his 2 young men were with him.
Keep going.
The she-donkey saw the angel of Hashem standing on the road with his sword drawn in his hand. So the she-donkey...
The angel has a sword in his hand, not the donkey. Okay? Just clarifying that.
Yeah. So the she-donkey turned away from the road and went into the field. Then Bilam struck the she-donkey to turn it back onto the road.
Keep going.
The angel of Hashem stood in the path of the vineyards, a fence on this side and a fence on that side. The she-donkey saw the angel of Hashem and pressed against the wall, and it pressed Bilam's leg against the wall, and he continued to strike it. The angel of Hashem went further and stood in a narrow place where there was no room to turn right or left. The she-donkey saw the angel of Hashem and crouched beneath Bilam. Bilam's anger flared, and he struck the she-donkey with the staff.
Keep going.
Hashem opened the mouth of the she-donkey, and it said to Bilam, "What have I done to you that you struck me these 3 times?" Bilam said to the she-donkey, "Because you mocked me."
I want to just... It's just a female... It's a female donkey.
Female
The donkey just starts speaking.
Well, I have to tell you, one of my most favorite lines in all of Chumash is this pasuk. Vayiftach Hashem es pia asan, that Hashem opened up the mouth of the donkey, and the donkey starts speaking. And Bilam
It's like Shrek.
has a conversation back. Yeah, but that's cartoon,
Crazy.
right? So go. So Bilam responds.
Because you mocked me. If only there was a sword in my hand, I would now have killed you. The she-donkey said to Bilam, "Am I not your she-donkey, that you have ridden upon me all your life until this day? Have I been accustomed to do such a thing to you?" He said no.
And then
Then
God opens up Bilam's eyes, and he sees the angel of God with a flaming sword standing in the way, and he's like, "Oh,
Yeah, you were so rude for what?
oh, maybe I was something else was going on over here, right?" So okay. I think it's a wild story.
The donkey ran
I was just gonna say, one of the questions I had about this parsha, and I spoke to my brother about yesterday, is why is it named after such an evil man? Like, why would it be named after Balak?
Right. Balak's a pretty nasty person. Why
Yeah.
is it named after him? We're going to get to that. If we don't answer... Oh, you got an answer?
Okay, so I have like part of an answer.
Okay, give me part of an answer.
Definitely not like so like thought through enough, but it's part of an answer. I think it's named after Balak because it's a reminder that a lot of the events that occur in this parsha there are a lot of miracles, like a lot of like stuff that's like reminiscent of like Mashiach coming. So like the speaking, when Hashem makes the donkey speak, and then even with Bilam, the fact that he starts out as a man who hates the Jews and is actually sent to curse the Jews and to completely wipe out the Jews, and by the end he says that Amalek will come and go, but the Jews are like the blessed, they're essentially they're God's chosen people and they'll still be around.
Doesn't make him like them anymore, by the way.
Doesn't make it like them, but the fact he doesn't curse them, and I think it's just like that goes to show that like. That if you have like the Jews have a relationship with Hashem, and that even though Balak was such an evil guy, he's a reminder that like Hashem can still do these amazing things. So
Okay.
I don't know.
One of the other things that I've seen is that not only is he a reminder, but he's actually the channel for these things to happen.
yeah, that's
He's a
true.
channel for these things to happen. So that's kind of awesome.
Yeah.
Okay. Now, I want to sit on the story for a second, but I want to just quickly end the story, okay? Essentially what's going to happen is that Bilam is going to continue on his way. He's going to try to curse the Jewish people 3 different times. Each time he tries to curse them, amazing blessings are going to come out of his mouth. And finally, Balak gets fed up with him and says, "Waste of money, go home. No, I'm not paying you. You're a loser." My words, my paraphrasing of the event. And as he's getting ready it's the Aliyah for Shabbos. So where is that? The 7th Aliyah. Over here, it's going to be in chapter 24, verse 14. as he's given his 3 sets of non-curses, he's given 3 amazing blessings. As he's being sent away, he turns away, and this is the only place as Eli was saying, this is the only place in the Torah that we have a direct reference to Mashiach coming. So those are coming from Bilam, where he talks about, I see a time that is not near, someplace that's not close, and he goes and he talks about every single one of the nations, what's going to happen to each of the nations, and then he goes on. Now the last thing that happens in our Torah portion is it's the beginning of chapter 25, and it's a very, very terrible story. And the story opens up and it says that the Jewish people were sitting in this place called Shittim, and they start to have relations with the daughters of Moab. Okay? And basically what happens is that the Moabite women went after the Jewish men, and they had their little idols tucked with them, and as they were like, everybody's getting excited, so the girls would say, here, just before we close our deal, can you serve, just do this? And so the men were serving this idol Pa'or, which is also different, interesting conversation. Maybe we'll get to there, maybe we won't. And a massive, massive plague breaks out amongst the people, and 24,000 men are killed. 24,000 men are killed in this plague. The plague stops. And the plague stops when a person called Pinchas, who is the grandson of Aharon, actually goes. The head of the tribe of Shimon actually takes a Moabite woman with him, stands in front of Moses, and is literally having relations with her in front of everybody. Takes her to the tent, and Pinchas goes with a massive spear and he kills them. And he carries them out like a shish kebab. Do not try this at home. It probably won't work. We're going to talk more about Pinchas next week. And that's what causes the plague to stop. Okay? So, I just want to finish and say, one of the things that Rashi brings, and he brings from the Medrash, that Bilam was trying to curse the Jewish people. He tried to curse them 3 times and it did not work. And his fourth saying was, what's going to happen at the end of days, talk about Mashiach coming. But the Medrash tells us, Rashi brings, that before he left, he says to Balak, listen, I'll give you one for free. This didn't work out so well, but if you can get the girls to get the boys to sin, then their God will really be angry. And that will get his wrath burning. Bilam says to Balak, the sorcerer says to the king, Bilam says to Balak, this didn't work out so well, this plan, but plan B, send the girls after the guys and see what happens. And he is incredibly, incredibly, incredibly successful. And that's why I say that this Bilam encouraged the people to break the norms of their own moral code. This was not something that people were doing. In fact, we're going to talk about it more next week. It wasn't just like, let's do a roundup of like all the girls who are like, whatever, and send them out. They had people were targeted. So they took the princesses of Moab and they were aiming to go for the heads of the tribes. They were aiming to go for Moses Aaron wasn't alive at this point. So like they had targets of who they were looking to seduce. And they sent thousands and thousands of their own daughters, and I have to say, gross. It's one thing if somebody wants to do something on their own, like whatever, but like this is like their war strategy. We're going to just take all our women and we're going to just let them go be prostitutes just to win the war. Seems really, really not so nice. And that's why we say that Bilam, who had the potential to uplift the people, he schlepped them even lower than whatever they were doing was whatever they were doing. But he sort of made this place and said, this should be your tactic, and they went along with it. So he gave bad advice. They followed bad advice. The Jewish people end up suffering terribly. We're not going to get into that conversation so much now because we're going to run out of time. I have a few things I need to discuss, but we're going to pick up the conversation of Pinchas next week in next week's Torah portion. Okay. There's a lot of stuff going on in this parsha. we could spend a lot of time doing a lot of things. We're not going to go into a lot of things. That didn't make any sense. I'm sorry. I want to talk about a few things. The first thing I want to talk about tangentially, because I want to talk about it more, I want to talk about the fact that Bilam, there was a block in his way that he did not see. Right? There was an angel standing in the beginning when he's starting to leave. There's an angel in his way that he cannot see. And Rashi says that it is an angel of mercy standing in his way to stop him from going on this path that he has chosen to go. And one of the things that the commentators talk about, and I sort of want to highlight for a little bit, is in our lives, there are sometimes random blockages that we don't see and we don't understand because we don't see them. And we're like, why is this happening? Why is this not happening? However you want to phrase it in your particular life. And is there something for us to stop and say, wait a second, why can't I do what it is that I really want to do? Maybe I need to reevaluate where I'm headed and what I'm doing. Maybe this is a message from Hashem that's saying, maybe that's not really where you should be headed. And the fact that we don't see it doesn't mean that it isn't from Hashem. Bilam did not see the angel standing in his way. He did not see the angel. But still, there was, in fact, the Torah tells us there was an angel standing in his way, blocking it, and it's an angel of mercy saying, you are on the wrong path. You need to recalibrate, like on ways, rerouting, you really need to figure out how to do this differently. So that's one plug that I want to something I think it's just an interesting thing for us to think about, because very often we're trying to do something and it doesn't make any sense why it's not working out. Like it should be working and it isn't, and maybe we need to think again and say, is that really where I want to be going? Is that what I want to be doing? So that's one thing that I thought I wanted to share. The other thing that I wanted to share is, first of all, one of the last blessing that he gives us is Bilam. Bilam is one who's, he's trying to curse us and he ends up blessing us. Okay? So he, one second. I just want to find it. Nope, that's not where I want to go. First of all, they go to different places. He tries to. Balak is actually also a version of some kind of divination kind of person. He's able to see where bad things happen. Balak. So he keeps leading Bilam and saying, let's try it here. He takes him to a space that overlooks a place where the people ended up sinning and a place where Moses ends up dying. He's like, maybe he senses like some kind of smudge on the energy and maybe you could do something over there. So they keep moving from place to place. They put up altars and they bring sacrifices and everything. And I can't find it, but one second, I'm just trying to find. He gives, one of the brachas that he gives us is Matovu Ahalecha Yaakov, Mishkenotecha Yisrael. Where do we know that from? From our davening, right? Matovu, exactly, the beginning of Matovu, where he says, how beautiful are your tents, how beautiful is the way your camp is set up. And I'm trying to find it over here, but I didn't mark it in this chumash, so I can't find it easily, and I don't want to take all your time while I try to find it. I can't find it. I'll find it afterwards. But the preface to that bracha of Matovu, of how goodly are your tents, first of all, there's a conversation about what did he see that he's blessing, and what Rashi brings that there was a sense of privacy between the tents. You couldn't look directly from one tent into the other tent. That the way they were positioned was that the doors weren't facing each other, so you couldn't actually see directly into your neighbor's tent. So to sort of, to prevent people from looking and being jealous and all that kind of stuff that happens with the looking. Lior, could you just put on the air for a little bit? Sorry.
Yeah.
The other thing, the introduction to that bracha is that it says that he saw the Jewish people camped according to their tribes. I'll find it afterwards. I'll give you the chapter and the verse for it. And one of the things that I think is so important for us to remember is that we have 12 tribes for many, many reasons. But one of the what I think is one of the most important reasons that we have 12 tribes is to understand that there is no one way to have a relationship with God. Every single tribe, it wasn't just because you have more children if you have more children, right? That wasn't only it. You have tribes because there are different ways to have a relationship with Hashem. And if anybody ever tells you there's only one way to have a relationship with God, that's not actually true. There are many authentic ways to have a relationship with Hashem. And when we can each be who I am and let the other person be who they are, and together we work together to have a relationship with Hashem, each of us in our own manner. But I don't feel a need to knock you down, and it's not like everybody has to do it my way. That's where the bracha comes. How goodly is our tents? We have different ways of approaching Hashem. We have different authentic ways of approaching Hashem. We also have some really interesting ways of approaching Hashem, which, maybe, whatever. But within having a real relationship with Hashem, according to His view and how He believes it should be done, there is no one way to do it. And when we can actually see who we are and celebrate who we are and who other people are, that's where the bracha of real unity is. Real unity isn't like we're one chalent, we all sort of mush and blend together, and we become one indistinguishable kind of mix. But we're maybe more like a salad bar, like everything keeps its flavor, everything keeps its identity, everything keeps its shape and color, but we still mix together and make a new thing. And I think that's something that we need to think about. How am I holding on to who I am? And how am I moving forward in my relationship with God? And how am I bringing that unity into my life? Because we all have different parts of our life and all this kind of stuff. And I just thought that was kind of a neat little sliver within all of everything that's going on over here to sort of highlight. There's a lot of stuff to talk about in this parsha, which yes.
What's the significance of God telling Bilam to have Balak build and his men build 7 altars at every
God doesn't say that. God doesn't say that. Bilam says to Balak, at each stop they built 7 altars and they brought animals on each altar and everything. I'm saying this, but it's not my own. I'm quoting from the commentators, but the language is mine. It was showmanship. Bilam says to Balak, this is what I need in order to have Hashem come. I need lots of altars, lots of animals, smoke, and lightning, and things. It was Bilam.
Okay.
Bilam is the sorcerer, and Balak is the king. What?
Balak wasn't a Jew.
No, neither of them are.
Why do they care about Hashem?
What?
Why do they care?
No. Balak is the king. Bilam is the sorcerer. Balak's like, I gotta fight the Jews somehow. I need you to tap into some energy and curse these people, because I can't fight them. Militarily, I'm gonna lose. So I need you to finagle the system, which is, you have this power. Now Bilam knows he has a real power. It's from Hashem. So he's trying to make Hashem happy and saying, look, I'm bringing you all these sacrifices and more than everybody else and the forefathers.
Because he wants more power?
Because he wants God to give him this space to hook into something negative. He wants to be able to. He can only say what Hashem says, but if he can get Hashem angry, then he'll be able to hook in a curse in that space. It's very interesting. Rav Ginsburg, math is not my subject, but Rav Ginsburg is very, very mathematical. I was reading one of his articles, and he was talking about how one of the things that Bilam was able to do, it says in the verses that God gets angry for a second. Like there's a short little space that God gets angry. And I don't know, I didn't understand the mathematics of it, but he's like that God gets angry for 1/23 of a second. And Bilam had the ability to know when that 1/23 of a second was, and to sort of like zoom in to the one little smidgen of time where God was angry and say, got you there. Because, I'm not saying this about God, I'm saying this about us. Sometimes when we're angry, we do things that afterwards like, I know where that came from, but that wasn't what I was planning, right? And Bilam is hoping that he can get God, catch him off guard, so to speak, and then be able to curse the Jewish people. That's what he was brought here for. And even though God said, I'm not going to let you curse these people, he still thinks he's going to be able to curse the people. So he keeps changing direction and places and doing all this stuff to say, maybe God will, in this particular place, for this little second, let me curse the Jewish people. Maybe. Maybe he's going to let me do that. And it didn't work. What do I want to say? Oh, one thing that's interesting that the commentators talk about, the idea, is that we talked about how Moses and Bilam are sort of counterparts in different realms. And Moses, who loves us the most of anybody in the world, is the one who actually tells us off. And Bilam, who hates us more than anybody else, is the one who gives us the blessings. Right? Because when somebody who loves you says, you did a great job, it was awesome, you're amazing, you're like, yeah, whatever, you're my mother, you're supposed to say that, right? But when somebody who hates you gives you a compliment, then you're like, it's got to be real, because you couldn't pay this person to say anything nice about me, right? So the sages actually comment on the fact that these two parallel places, and when Moses, who loves you, says, you can do better, this is where you need to excel, and this is where you're not doing so well, it's not just like, oh, you just want to kick me when I'm down, you really want it, it's in my best interest, which I think is also for us in the place of how do we pay attention to our speech, how do we be the, where's our balance of helping ourselves, let's start with ourselves, helping ourselves grow and being nice to ourselves. I feel like we very often are very not nice to ourselves. We say things to ourselves we would never say to our friends or to a stranger in the street. And I want to train us to speak more nicely to ourselves. And it should be coming. Yes, it should be coming from a place of love. But even if it's coming from a place where we're feeling unhappy about something particular, sort of like how Bilam doesn't really like the Jewish people, but he's able to see something good. We should be able to find good in ourselves because we are really, like we started off, we are a blessed people, and we have to be able to see it for ourselves, because if we can't see it for ourselves and in ourselves, there's no way we can shine it out to anybody else. And that's really what we're meant to do. We're meant to be taking this goodness and this kindness and shining it forward. So that was two things I want to say. The other thing that I want to say, which I think is kind of neat, is this whole talking animal situation. Right? I think it's kind of neat.
It is.
Now, according to some of the commentators, it did not actually happen in real life. Okay, it did not actually happen in real life. That it's just a vision that Bilam had.
Haters.
No, not haters. I think there's different ways to look. Listen, according to Maimonides, all the things we talk about angels in the Torah, he says they're only visions. There's no manifestations of angels in this world. And I'm sure that on some there's truth to that, and on some level that is true, and then on some other level it's not really true, or there is the ability to have. So there's a as we say in learning, it's a machlokas, it's a disagreement. But we're going to run with the fact that it did in fact happen. Okay. First of all, I want to say that one of my all-time favorite lines in the Torah is "Vayiftach Hashem es pi ha'asam." Like sometimes, do you ever notice? Sometimes you're like in a conversation with somebody, and you say something, and you're like, "Wow, that was good. I don't know where that came from, but that was really good." So I feel like that's times where it's like God sort of opens your mouth and something comes out that's really neat. So I like this. But can you tell me another animal in Torah who speaks? The snake. Okay, we have two animals that speak. We have the snake that speaks, and we have the donkey that speaks. Okay, and Rav Ginsburg develops this in a fascinating essay, where he talks about the idea, what does each animal, okay, I'm skipping all the math part of it. This was square numbers of this and square numbers. If anybody's a math person who wants it, I can give you a copy of the essay. It's not a problem. Okay, but I'm going to like the part that made sense to me. Okay? So, what does the snake say? Anybody remember what does the snake say? The snake says to Chava, says to Eve,
Eat the fruit.
why? Why should you eat this fruit?
Because it will make you smarter.
Because it will make you like God.
Like,
Right? We'll make you like God. They have this conversation back and forth. It'll make you like God. What does the donkey say to Bilam? What is his reasoning? What does he say? What does the donkey say? Why did you do this? What's our history? Have I ever done anything like this before? Like, what's going on over here, right? So they're the two animals that speak really are two paradigms of ways that the Yetzer Hara comes to us and says and wants us to not follow Hashem. The snake comes and says, this is a once in a lifetime opportunity. Look at this. This is amazing. You could be like God. Just do this. Just whatever, right? And there are times in our life that we have this snake-like interaction with the world, with whatever, that's like, oh my gosh, I could get something amazing. All I have to do is break Shabbos, not do this, steal this, whatever it is, right? The snake attitude towards us is opportunism. Right now, like, you got to make a decision right now. You could do this, you could get this, it'll be amazing for you. What does the donkey say? The donkey's like, let's look at this logically. Does this make sense? Where's the empirical evidence for this? Where does this come from? How does this, what does our history look like? Now, I want to point out the irony that the donkey, who is arguing for there is nature and there are rules of nature and things behave in a way of nature, is speaking. He's speaking. That's not rules of nature. But he's arguing our history. What have I ever done? Why are you doing this, right? So the place of the world that argues to us and says, you should follow the rules of nature. This is how things go, and this is what it's always like. And why are you being different? And why are you trying to stand out? That's donkey attitude. And one of the things that's very interesting, you didn't hear it in the English, but when Maya was reading, she kept saying the she-donkey. And in Hebrew, the word for the she-donkey is aton. We have a chamor and we have an aton. Aton is a female donkey. But Rav Ginsburg points out that there's also aton is the root of the word Atuna. And Atuna is the country of Greece. And when we talk about the paradigm of Greek logic is natural and normal, and what is the hypothesis and what is the, how did you prove it and how does this thing? And one of the things that we Jews know is that yes, there are laws of nature, but not because the laws of nature in and of themselves are important. They're there because Hashem created a system of nature that He wants to operate this world through, and therefore we have these rules of nature. But when Hashem wants, He can make a donkey speak. And when He wants, the sea will split and the things will change. The nature is not the value in and of itself. The nature is the value of how we go through nature to find Hashem. And when nature argues with Hashem, then we need to remember that it's a block. It's a donkey coming to us and saying, leave Hashem. And we have to say, no. Nature is only as good as it is serving my purpose of serving Hashem. Because if it's not, I can change nature. I can't change nature, but Hashem can change nature, and Hashem has changed nature. And so therefore, we're not slaves to nature. We respect it. We understand that it has a place, but at the same time, we have this place where we're not sort of slaves to nature. So I think it's kind of neat, and I want to give us a bracha as we're going into this world. And the Jews are right now, they're on the border of the land of Israel. They're like on the other side of the Jordan. On a clear day, you could literally see a cross, right? It's so close. And sometimes when we're so close to whatever our goal is, it just feels like somebody moved the goalposts and it got further for us. So I want to give us a bracha that we are so close. We should be able to see the good and the kind and the place that we're headed, and to not be tricked by not the donkey and not the snake, who really want to stop us from making that last step and crossing over into the land of Israel. And I want to give us a bracha that we know to identify it when we hear those voices, whether they're in our head or they're coming at us from outside, and to be able to say, I don't buy your story. I'm not going that way. I am following Hashem, and I'm going to be able to continue on my way or say that I need to switch a little bit, whatever, that's a different conversation. But I want to give us a bracha that we can identify the negative voices and put a stop to them. Because if we can't identify them, we for sure can't stop them. And it's only when we are able to say, no, that's not a holy voice. That's the only way we can have a chance of stopping it. Question, comment?
I don't understand how the donkey is like a form of the Yetzer Hara when Balaam hit the donkey. It doesn't make sense that he hit the donkey. And it's not like a godly act that he needs to do it.
What do you mean?
Like, you're saying that the donkey saying what he's doing is against nature.
Right.
And that's true, no? Like,
Well, which part? No, the donkey is saying to Bilam, like, we have a relationship. We've been traveling for years. And according to some of the commentators, the donkey and Bilam had a very, very close relationship. But this is a PG recording. So the question that we're talking about is, how do we take it out of the story and look into the art, look into what they're saying, not the hitting. Meaning, you're right. We should, so to speak, be hitting the nature. Is that what you're saying?
okay.
Is that what you're saying? Like, if he hit it, then he's fighting it?
No, I think he shouldn't be hitting.
Correct. And the donkey says, why are you hitting me? The donkey says, why are you hitting me? Like, we have history. I've served you loyally. I've served you faithfully. Why are you hitting me? And he's like, you're getting in my way and you're not letting me go where I want to go. And then all of a sudden he's like, oh, there's an angel in the way with a flaming sword and we can't go by. So the donkey is able to see that which the human is not able to see. And he's reacting to that. And so instead of Bilam saying to himself, I wonder what's going on here. This is what the donkey's saying. Like, why didn't you question why I was doing this? I've never done this before. Why did you not raise the question? Why are you getting so angry and beating me? Why wouldn't you say, look at our history and say, why am I doing this? Maybe there's a reason for it. So that's the Bilam and that's Bilam and his donkey story. And what Rav Ginsburg is pulling out is saying that place of the world that says there's a natural way and this always happens and this is how it always is, and therefore I should fall in line with that. That's where the trick is. That's where we need to fight. Question, comment? Okay, question, comment.
It's really quick. When you say that was